Hi, I wanted to make a video today, a kind of health one. So I wanted to talk about gluten and Ascension and ascending. So since I've always had a real gluten intolerance since I was quite young, I've avoided wheat since I was 20, and refined processed sugars and processed foods really, because I've always had a really um, sensitive stomach, and I've always been searching really progressive health ways to make myself feel better. I mean, I've probably been researching food, health, supplements, various stuff for probably 10 years. So not in an expert type way, and I mean no way an expert that can advise you, but I've put in a lot of time reading different things and trying different things as well, because sometimes it works for one person, it doesn't work for you. So I have definitely come to realize that about particularly different diets and ways of living, that they can work for a little bit or they can work for one person and they can not work for you. As a rule of thumb, I've come to work out that basically you don't start, if you're doing it for dieting reasons, you don't start digesting your fat until you've burned off all your carbohydrates. So eating a mixed diet and eating regularly a mix of carb and fat is why you're going to gain weight, because actually that's why the Atkins diet type works and the low carb diets work. It's why intermittent fasting works, because your body has the time to burn off the carbohydrates and the fat. And it's why the low fat diets work as well, because your body doesn't have the fat to burn off. So all those methods work for weight loss. As for what's healthy and what works for you, like you have to find your own way with that, whether it's intermittent fasting, whether it's low fat, whether it's low carb, or whether it's just leaving a decent time in between for the food to metabolize, or alternating your meals, whatever works for you. But that's the rule of thumb when it comes to why you might gain weight. But now on to the kind of more health issues and the intolerances. So, I've lived very healthy for the best way I can, and that's changed. I mean, in 2010, I went raw vegan for 2 years. I think at that point I still ate a bit of fish, weirdly. So I was like raw vegan, but every once in a blue moon I'd eat some fish. And that was great for me for 2 years. It was so healing and it was amazing. But then after 2 years, I felt really guided to go back to vegan. I mean, not to go back, to go vegan. So I was eating cooked foods and raw foods, and I was feeling better for doing that. And at all different stages in my life, I'm drawn to do different things. Lately, I've put eggs back in if I know where the source of the eggs is from. And that might leave soon, maybe I'll go back to vegan or back to raw for a bit. And for me personally, it's just about following my intuition, not my cravings, because they're very different. I think when people say, I follow my food intuition, there's a difference between following your food intuition from a real, what your body wants, and then from kind of patterns and cravings that you have. So I think it's quite important to get real about why you're craving the foods, and to really look into it and question it. Not just be like, I want sugar today, so I'm gonna have cake. Obviously, as much as that can feel like my body's wanting that, it's obviously coming from a kind of craving and a need to be fulfilled, and it's toxic and it isn't going to help with ascension. So moving into gluten, so I kind of sometimes suffer from real lethargy. I don't know how much of it's from this journey and how much of it's food related, and I get headaches and all my bones ache, and it all happens in sync. And I know that I potentially have something that could be causing it, like a genetic problem. But at the same time, I've been really monitoring my diet and foods around when I have flare-ups, because that's what's been so strange for me, is that I'll be so high energy, people's jaws will drop when I'm in the gym, because I'm going so flat out, and I literally could do 3 hours of working out and not even be tired. And I'm really high, and I'm the bubbly, awake one in the room. And then sometimes I'll just get flat out and I just can't lift myself off the bed, and I just feel almost like my body's paralyzed. I have a headache, all my bones and my joints ache. And it seems to be in these flare-ups, and I have been watching my diet because I've been quite convinced that that is at least in part way connected to all of this. And I've been really finding out that every time I have something with gluten in it, that it's really, really affecting me to that level now, that it's triggering all those things in me. And I'm so sensitive to it at this point. I mean, earlier in my life, I was sensitive because I avoided it, but not to this level. You know, like I had to have a build-up of it for me to notice. Whereas now, I mean, I just had one sandwich and some couscous. That was the first gluten I'd had in a long time, and it just hit me straight away. And by that evening, I was feeling really, really sick, and all my joints were aching, and I was starting to get a headache, and I still feel very, very tired and weak today. And I spoke to some of my friends who are on a similar path as well, and they kind of shared their experiences, that they also felt that when they ingested gluten, now they're more awake, they just cannot tolerate it, whereas in the past they could eat it and now they can't. So I just wanted to share that with you, that it does seem as though the more you kind of ascend and clear stuff out, the less you can tolerate gluten and certain, you know, food substances. Gluten seems to be one of the biggies that I've gotten onto right now. Like I said, I don't like to share too much on that because I think everybody has their own little things that they can and can't eat. Like for me, I'm not really great with, like I'm also trying to follow a bit of a low histamine diet at the moment, which is really restrictive on top of being predominantly vegan. So, because it takes out nightshades, cacao, Coke, chocolate stuff, a lot of things on there. But that has been working quite well for me at the moment to feel closer to optimum health. But that doesn't mean that that diet is for everybody. And if you didn't need to follow it, I'm not really recommending it. But I will just like to draw people's conclusion to the gluten, that if you are getting some of those symptoms, and whilst the thing is, I know the problem with it is a lot of them are Ascension symptoms as well. So we tend to write them off, and I wrote mine off for a long time. And then I started to kind of look, not really do like a physical food diary, but I was keeping a kind of mental food diary of when I was feeling them. And I connected it to ingesting gluten. And whilst I think there is still a mix going on, I'm really not sure that as our bodies are getting lighter, they're able to assimilate glutinous foods in the same way as maybe they used to. And I just wanted to put that out there. So if anyone's having some problems and they're questioning their diet, then maybe they could try cutting out gluten for, you know, a few weeks and just see if the symptoms ease off and if they feel better. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm going to come back with some other videos and some other topics, but I'll leave that for now. Okay, bye.